If you're over 60, please, I am begging you, stop whatever you're doing right now and listen very, very closely. You've journeyed through a lifetime, haven't you? Consciously trying to eat right, perhaps choosing fruits over those tempting processed snacks, diligently avoiding fried foods, and making a real effort to cut back on sugar. You've done what you genuinely thought was healthy, what every piece of advice seemed to point towards. But here's a thought that might send a shiver down your spine. What if I told you that some of the most common, seemingly innocent fruits nestled in your kitchen bowl right now, fruits you firmly believe are safeguarding your precious heart, may actually be slowly, insidiously working to destroy it? This isn't some scare tactic or fear-mongering. I assure you, it's a stark medical reality grounded in decades of observation and clinical practice. As we gracefully, or sometimes not so gracefully, age, our bodies undergo profound, often unseen transformations. What might have been a beneficial choice for your heart when you were a spry 40-year-old could now, at 70 or beyond, be actively sabotaging your cardiovascular health. These changes are subtle, they are silent, and tragically, they can be deadly. The devastating truth is that most seniors never see these dangers coming, never suspect that their healthy choices are leading them down a perilous path until it's far, far too late. As a heart doctor who has dedicated over 30 years to treating older adults, I've watched this heartbreaking scenario unfold too many times to count. Good, well-intentioned patients, harmed by hidden truths about common foods that no one ever took the time to warn them about. So, in the information that follows, I'm going to carefully walk you through 9 specific fruits that may be quietly yet persistently damaging your heart, and crucially, I'll show you what you can eat instead to truly nourish and protect it. Please, for the sake of your health, your cherished independence, and the future you still deserve to enjoy, stay with me. This might just be the most important health message you encounter this year. Let's talk about grapefruit. If you're over 60 and meticulously trying to protect your heart, grapefruit might seem like a completely harmless, even virtuous friend. It's refreshing, it's tangy, and it's packed with that wonderful vitamin C. For decades, many seniors have confidently reached for a grapefruit in the morning, believing it's a clean, unequivocally heart-healthy start to their day. But what if I were to tell you that this seemingly innocent citrus delight could be quietly interfering with your vital medications, turning your simple breakfast into a complex biochemical battleground raging inside your body? Now let me be crystal clear, grapefruit is not inherently dangerous for everyone. However, if you are one of the millions of seniors taking medications specifically for your heart, particularly common drugs like statins for cholesterol, calcium channel blockers for blood pressure, or antiarrhythmics for irregular heartbeats, this fruit can seriously disrupt how your liver processes those essential drugs. This interference can sometimes lead to dangerously toxic levels of medication building up in your bloodstream. Here's a glimpse of what's happening beneath the surface. Grapefruit contains potent compounds known as furanocoumarins. These natural chemicals have the ability to inhibit or block a crucial enzyme in your liver called CYP3A4. This enzyme is a major pathway your body uses to break down and eliminate a vast array of medications. When this enzyme is effectively shut down or significantly slowed by grapefruit, the medicine isn't metabolized properly. Instead, it accumulates in your body. It's akin to your system trying to drain a large volume of water through a severely clogged pipe. The pressure inevitably rises, and with it, so does the risk of serious side effects. Imagine this scenario. You enjoy a single glass of grapefruit juice with your breakfast, right alongside your prescribed simvastatin for cholesterol or your amlodipine for high blood pressure. Over time, with repeated exposure, the drug steadily accumulates. You might not feel anything amiss at first, but quietly, silently, your blood pressure could begin to drop too low, your heartbeat might become erratic and unpredictable, or your muscles may start to ache and weaken, a telltale sign of statin toxicity. You likely wouldn't even suspect that the very fruit you're consuming for its health benefits is the culprit. I'll never forget my patient, Mr. Gerald, a 74-year-old retired railroad engineer. Gerald had, by all accounts, done everything right since his bypass surgery. He walked diligently every morning, took his medications religiously, and had sworn off red meat. Yet he was still experiencing troubling dizzy spells, persistent fatigue, and uncomfortable muscle cramping. When I reviewed his chart, nothing immediately added up. It was only when I delved into his breakfast routine that the pieces began to fit. With a proud smile, he told me, "Doc, every morning since my heart attack, I start the day with a glass of fresh grapefruit juice. It's my cleanse." That cleanse, however, was actually clogging his liver's ability to process his medications effectively. His statin levels were found to be more than double what they should have been, and his blood pressure medications were lingering in his system for far too long. Gerald wasn't being careless. He was earnestly doing what he thought was healthy, but his good intentions nearly cost him another traumatic trip to the hospital. Once we removed grapefruit from his diet, carefully adjusted his medications, and closely monitored his blood levels, his symptoms thankfully disappeared. He later confided in me, "I had no idea that something so small, so seemingly benign, could mess me up that badly. I always thought grapefruit was good for the heart, and it can be, for some, but decidedly not if you're on certain heart medications. If you are over 60 and taking any prescription drugs for your heart, blood pressure, or cholesterol, you absolutely need to have a serious conversation with your doctor or pharmacist specifically about grapefruit and its potential interactions. Don't ever assume it's safe just because it's natural. Nature can be incredibly powerful, and unchecked power, even from a fruit, can be dangerous. This isn't about blaming the fruit itself. It's about affording your aging body the profound respect and careful consideration it deserves. After 60, your metabolism undergoes significant changes, your liver function naturally slows, and the margin for error in how your body processes substances shrinks considerably. This means that even seemingly small choices, like a single glass of juice, can carry potentially life-threatening consequences. Grapefruit doesn't come with a prominent warning label about these interactions, but perhaps it should. If you're navigating your years beyond 60, chances are high that someone at some point has enthusiastically told you that bananas are exceptionally good for your heart. They're undeniably easy to digest, famously packed with potassium, and they often carry that comforting, nostalgic feeling of home and simpler times. After all, what could possibly be safer or more wholesome than a soft, natural fruit that has graced American breakfast tables for generations? But here's the critical insight that most seniors and even some healthcare providers don't fully realize. As your kidneys age, a process that happens to all of us, the very same potassium that once diligently protected your heart can quietly, stealthily push it into a danger zone. This risk is particularly pronounced if you're already taking medications that influence your body's potassium balance, such as ACE inhibitors like lisinopril, RBs like losartan, or potassium-sparing diuretics. Your body, after the age of 60, simply isn't the same finely tuned machine it was at 40. Your kidneys don't clear minerals with the same efficiency, and your heart isn't as resilient to sudden or significant shifts in electrolyte levels. When potassium begins to build up in your bloodstream, a condition known as hyperkalemia, it often doesn't make you feel sick, at least not right away. But deep inside your chest, it can seriously disrupt the delicate electrical signals that orchestrate your heart's rhythmic beating. One minute you might be feeling perfectly fine, and the next you could find yourself dizzy, profoundly weak, or even worse, lying in an emergency room with a dangerously irregular heartbeat, never knowing that the 3 bananas you've been diligently eating every morning for your blood pressure are in fact part of what brought you there. I'll never forget Mrs. Connie Harper, a sweet 76-year-old widow. She came to my clinic profoundly shaken after an episode that scared her to her core, a fainting spell right in the middle of the grocery store. She'd felt her heart skip and flutter before, but this time was terrifyingly different. Her vision blurred, her legs gave out, and by the time the paramedics arrived, her heart was in ventricular arrhythmia, a life-threatening rhythm disturbance. When I sat down with her a few days later, her voice was soft but laced with anxiety. "I just don't understand, doctor," she lamented. "I don't eat junk food. I walk every morning. I don't touch salt, and I take my lisinopril every day. just like I'm told. The only treat I allow myself is my bananas, 3 a day, every single day, for years. What Connie didn't know, and what far too many seniors are unaware of, is that bananas, while generally healthy in moderation, are one of the highest potassium-rich fruits available. Each medium banana contains roughly 400 to 450 milligrams of potassium. That's perfectly fine for a young, healthy individual with robust kidney function. But Connie's blood pressure medication, lisinopril, was already working to increase her potassium levels, and her aging kidneys simply couldn't clear the excess fast enough from her daily banana habit. The result was a silent, gradual buildup of potassium that finally tipped her heart into chaos. Her lab tests confirmed it, hyperkalemia, and it didn't come from supplements or junk food. It came from her healthy habit. We carefully adjusted her medications, limited her banana intake to once or twice a week, not daily, and made sure her blood potassium levels were monitored regularly. She's doing much better now, but what shook her the most was how little warning she had. "I thought I was doing everything right," she said, a sentiment I hear far too often. This isn't about demonizing bananas. It's about fostering a deep understanding that even nature's best and most wholesome gifts must be handled differently, more thoughtfully as we age. Your heart is more sensitive now, your kidneys more fragile. What once gave you strength and vitality can now, under certain circumstances, overwhelm your system, slowly, quietly, and often without any pain. Potassium is absolutely essential for life, but it must be in balance. And for seniors, achieving that balance isn't just about the numbers. It's about staying aware, staying informed, and critically, not assuming that something is safe just because it's natural or healthy. If you're on heart medications, if you've had any kidney trouble, or if you've noticed unusual fatigue, muscle weakness, or skipped heartbeats, don't just dismiss it. Get your potassium levels checked, talk to your doctor about your diet in detail, and most importantly, don't fall into the common trap of thinking, if a little is good, then more must be better. That logic simply does not apply after 60, because even the most innocent-seeming habits, like a daily banana with breakfast, can, under the wrong circumstances, bring your heart closer to the edge. There's something undeniably irresistible about a perfectly ripe mango, isn't there? Its golden, succulent flesh, its intoxicating tropical scent, the way it just melts on your tongue. It feels like pure summer, like a taste of youth, like an indulgent comfort. For many older adults, a slice of mango is far more than just a treat. It's a delightful taste of memory, a sweet escape. But what if that very sweetness, that innocent-seeming indulgence, was silently, progressively overwhelming your heart? For seniors, especially those navigating the complexities of diabetes, pre-diabetes, or existing heart conditions, mangoes can quietly trigger a cascade of internal reactions. Reactions that confuse your metabolism, send your blood sugar soaring, and dangerously inflame your blood vessels, all without you even knowing. The unvarnished truth is that while mangoes do contain beneficial fiber and antioxidants, they also carry a very high glycemic load. This means they can rapidly elevate your blood glucose levels, a particularly concerning issue for older adults whose insulin response may already be weakened or less efficient. After the age of 60, your body processes sugar in a markedly different way. The pancreas, the organ responsible for producing insulin, may slow down its output, and your body's cells can become less sensitive to the insulin that is produced. This means your cells no longer take in sugar from the bloodstream as effectively as they once did. And this excess sugar doesn't just float harmlessly by, it clings to the delicate lining of your arteries, it actively feeds inflammation throughout your body, and it contributes to the stiffening of your vessel walls. Over time, this chronic low-grade inflammation becomes the hidden, insidious foundation upon which much heart disease is built. But that's not the full extent of the issue. A sudden sharp spike in blood sugar, such as the one a mango can induce, can also trigger a corresponding spike in blood pressure. This is because sugar doesn't just affect your metabolism in isolation, it disrupts the delicate hormonal balance that regulates crucial functions like blood flow, fluid retention, and even your heart's rhythm. It's a complex domino effect, and for many older Americans, it can start with something as seemingly innocuous as a single fruit they genuinely believed was a healthy choice. I'll never forget Mr. Donald Mays, a 69-year-old Vietnam veteran who came to my clinic complaining of an unsettling chest tightness and an overwhelming bone-deep fatigue. His medical history was commendably clean. No smoking, no penchant for fried food, and he even took daily walks. He had successfully lost 15 pounds over the past year. Yet, his blood pressure readings were erratic, and his A1C, a key marker of long-term blood sugar control, had quietly, ominously, crept into the diabetic range. What struck me most was how utterly puzzled and frustrated he was. "I've given up soda, I don't eat sweets anymore," he told me, his voice tinged with exasperation. "I snack on fruit now, mangoes mostly. Sometimes dried, sometimes fresh. It feels good, feels clean." But when I asked him how often he indulged in this clean snack, his answer startled me. "Every day, doc. 2 mangoes if they're small. They really help with the cravings." We quickly ran the numbers. 1 average-sized mango contains over 45 grams of sugar. That's more sugar than you'd find in a can of Coca-Cola. Dried mango is even worse, with no water content to provide volume, just highly concentrated fructose that absorbs almost straight into the bloodstream. Mr. Mays had unknowingly, with the best of intentions, replaced one dietary danger with another, and his heart was beginning to pay the price. His case, unfortunately, wasn't unique. In fact, many seniors earnestly try to eat clean by replacing processed sweets with tropical fruits, not realizing that these fruits can still wreak havoc on their blood sugar and blood pressure regulation. After we significantly cut back his mango intake and collaboratively built a safer fruit plan, incorporating more berries and lower glycemic options, his energy returned and his troubling heart symptoms began to fade. He told me later, with newfound understanding, "I never thought fruit could act like pure sugar, but I guess sugar is sugar, no matter how pretty and natural it looks." And he was absolutely right, because the human body doesn't particularly care whether the sugar came from a candy bar or a luscious mango. It just knows when it's overloaded. And the heart, often more fragile with age, is frequently the first organ to suffer the consequences. If you've ever felt that post-meal fatigue, that heavy, slow sensation in your heartbeat, or unexplained swelling in your feet or hands, take a closer, more critical look at the fruit on your plate. Not all fruit is unequivocally friendly to an aging system. Mangoes might feel wholesome and delightful, but for many hearts over 60, they represent a metabolic trap. Sweet on the tongue, but undeniably stressful on the arteries. There's something wonderfully timeless and evocative about watermelon, isn't there? It's the quintessential fruit of summer picnics, of carefree childhood laughter, of 4th of July memories, and convivial backyard barbecues. A cold, crisp slice on a warm day feels incredibly innocent, wonderfully hydrating, refreshingly light. That's precisely why so many seniors reach for it, confidently believing it's one of the safest, most heart-friendly fruits they can possibly enjoy. However, few people openly discuss what watermelon actually does to the aging body, and that silence, that lack of specific guidance, can be genuinely dangerous, especially after the age of 60. What many seniors don't realize is that watermelon isn't just water and a touch of sweetness. When consumed in excess, it can become a triple threat. It's loaded with natural sugars, it's packed with potassium, and it's capable of shifting the body's delicate fluid balance so rapidly that your heart and kidneys, which may already be working harder due to age, simply can't keep up. Let me explain this more clearly. As we age, it's a natural physiological process for our kidneys to experience a decline in function. This is a normal part of aging for most people. They don't filter waste products or manage electrolytes with the same vigor and efficiency as they did in our younger years. Now, add to this scenario common medications like ACE inhibitors, diuretics or beta blockers, which are frequently prescribed for managing high blood pressure and heart failure. These medications can either raise potassium levels in the body or make the body more sensitive to changes in fluid volume. So, when a large amount of watermelon enters the system, and it's not uncommon for people to consume 2 or 3 cups in a single sitting, especially when it's hot, you've just potentially sent your cardiovascular system into a challenging tailspin. I'll never forget Mrs. Lila Cartwright, a vibrant 81-year-old former librarian who came to see me late one summer. She presented with noticeably swollen ankles, concerning shortness of breath, and what she poignantly described as a heart that feels too heavy. She hadn't changed any of her medications, she wasn't eating processed foods or salty snacks, but when I inquired about any recent changes in her habits, her eyes lit up with a touch of pride. "Oh, doctor," she said, "I've been replacing my usual dessert with watermelon, big bowls of it morning and night. It's been so dreadfully hot lately, and I figured it's much better than ice cream, right?" Yes, arguably better than ice cream in some respects, but certainly not better than moderation, especially in her case. Her blood work revealed a borderline high potassium level, and her blood pressure, normally well controlled, was running unexpectedly low. Her heart, she reported, was struggling to maintain a normal rhythm during even mild physical exertion. The underlying cause? Too much watermelon, combined with her naturally reduced kidney clearance due to age, and heart medications that couldn't adjust fast enough to this sudden influx. It wasn't a sudden, acute failure. It was a slow, steady flood that her body simply couldn't process efficiently. Here's the stark truth. Just 1 cup of diced watermelon contains over 170 milligrams of potassium and more than 9 grams of sugar. That might seem harmless in isolation, but seniors often consume multiple cups, especially when they're consciously trying to stay hydrated during warm weather. The problem arises because this overload of water and electrolytes can dilute the sodium levels in the blood and significantly raise the strain on the heart, which then has to pump harder to manage the extra fluid volume. The potential results? Shortness of breath, a pervasive low energy, uncomfortable swelling, and in more serious instances, fluid backing up into the lungs or even triggering episodes of congestive heart failure. And all of this can stem from a fruit that no one ever explicitly warned you about in this context. Mrs. Cartwright had absolutely no idea. She genuinely thought she was doing the right thing for her health. But when you're over 60, even inherently healthy food can inadvertently hurt you if you're not carefully matching your intake to your current health status and medication regimen. We helped her reduce her watermelon intake to 1 small cup per day, paired it with better overall hydration strategies using plain water, and instituted regular potassium checks. She recovered well, but I'll never forget what she told me afterward, her voice filled with a mix of relief and astonishment. "I always thought the real danger was in salty chips or sugary desserts. I didn't think something so natural, so refreshing could knock me off balance like that." Watermelon isn't the enemy, but your heart is not the same resilient organ it was 20 or 30 years ago. When your kidneys are functioning more slowly, when your medications are finely tuned to maintain a delicate balance, and when the equilibrium inside your body is more fragile than ever, even something inherently wholesome can, in excess, become harmful. So the next time you reach for that second or third generous helping of watermelon, please pause. Ask yourself, is my heart truly ready for this much fluid? Is my body prepared for this concentrated load of sugar and potassium all at once? Because sometimes the foods that feel the most innocent, the most safe, are the ones that can catch us completely off guard. To many older Americans, dried fruits feel like a genuinely smart, undeniably wholesome snack choice. A handful of raisins instead of a packet of cookies. Perhaps a few dried apricots after dinner instead of a slice of rich pie. They're small, they're natural, and they're often easier to chew, which can be a real boon for some seniors. For those diligently trying to avoid the pitfalls of junk food, dried fruit often seems like the perfect middle ground, comforting yet health conscious. But here's the dangerous truth that seldom gets told. Dried fruit is, in essence, nature's candy. It's concentrated, it's sticky, and it's capable of silently, progressively damaging your heart. When a fruit is dried, nearly all of its water content is removed. What's left behind is a compact, calorie-dense, sugar-loaded piece of food that enters your bloodstream with astonishing speed. Without the significant water content and much of the original fiber of the whole fruit to slow down absorption, that natural sugar hits your system hard. This rapid influx can spike your blood sugar, promote inflammation in your blood vessels, and flood your heart with metabolic signals it can't always handle efficiently, especially after the age of 60. For seniors, particularly those already managing conditions like diabetes, prediabetes, high blood pressure, or established heart disease, these recurrent sugar spikes can be profoundly dangerous. They don't just temporarily raise blood sugar, they contribute to increased triglyceride levels, promote arterial stiffness, and foster insulin resistance. All of these factors are key components of a condition known as metabolic syndrome, which is essentially a ticking time bomb for heart attacks and strokes. I remember one patient in particular, Mr. Samuel Reed, a 72-year-old retired postal worker. He was a gentle, quiet man who came into my clinic deeply concerned after experiencing his second minor stroke in less than a year. He had no history of smoking, had successfully lost weight, and was remarkably diligent about taking his prescribed medications. He genuinely thought he was doing everything right to protect his health. However, his blood tests revealed alarmingly elevated triglycerides and a fasting blood sugar level well into the diabetic range. When I carefully questioned him about his diet, he proudly replied, "No junk food, doc. I don't eat cake or candy anymore. I just snack on fruit, raisins, prunes, dates. I keep them in a little tin in my truck for when I get peckish." What he didn't realize was that a mere quarter cup of raisins contains nearly 30 grams of sugar, which is almost as much as a standard candy bar. A few dried figs or dates can contain even more. These foods, though undeniably natural, are hyper-concentrated sources of fructose. When eaten regularly, especially in an aging body already under some degree of cardiovascular strain, they can push your metabolism into an unhealthy overdrive. Mr. Reed was earnestly trying to live a clean, healthy life, but no one had ever explained to him that sugar, whether it comes from a brightly colored candy wrapper or a humble raisin, still inflames the same blood vessels, stresses the same heart, and increases the same cardiovascular risks. We worked together closely to replace his go-to dried fruits with fresh, lower sugar options: berries, a few apple slices paired with a little peanut butter for protein and healthy fat, or some plain Greek yogurt with a sprinkle of cinnamon. Within a few weeks, his metabolic numbers began to stabilize, much to his relief. But what stuck with me most was what he said during his follow-up visit, his voice filled with a rueful understanding. "I thought I had given up dessert, doc. Turns out I just traded it for a smaller, sneakier version that completely fooled me." That, in a nutshell, is the inherent danger with dried fruit. It often wears a deceptive halo of health. It comes in small packages, frequently adorned with reassuring labels like "no added sugar" or "100% natural." But for seniors, portion size means absolutely everything. Those few little bites, consumed day after day, can silently undo all the hard-earned progress you've diligently worked to make in managing your health. And here's another often overlooked danger. Many commercially available dried fruits are coated in sugary syrups to enhance their appeal, or preserved with sulfites, which can irritate the gut and potentially raise blood pressure in sensitive individuals. Even those explicitly labeled unsweetened can still carry intense amounts of naturally occurring sugar, packed tightly into every chewy, deceptively small piece. So, the next time you instinctively reach for that bag of dried cranberries or that seemingly healthy trail mix, please pause and ask yourself, am I genuinely feeding my body with nourishment, or am I inadvertently overloading it in disguise? Because even healthy food, when condensed, concentrated, and misused, can act almost like a poison in an older, more sensitive body. There's an undeniable comfort and familiarity associated with a simple glass of fruit juice. It's familiar, it's simple, and for many older Americans, it feels like a genuinely good, health-conscious choice. Certainly better than soda, perhaps perceived as gentler than coffee, and often viewed as better than having nothing at all. Reassuring labels proclaiming 100% juice, no added sugar, or even heart healthy seem to bolster our confidence that we're making a smart decision for our well-being. But here's the unvarnished truth that few seniors are ever explicitly told: that sweet, innocent-seeming sip of juice may be quietly yet significantly straining your heart far more than you could ever imagine. Bottled fruit juice, whether it's orange, apple, grape, or one of those trendy superfruit blends, is fundamentally not the same as eating a whole piece of fruit. In fact, for the aging body, it can be one of the most deceptive and concentrated sources of sugar in the modern American diet. Why is this the case? Because the juicing process typically strips away the very component of fruit that helps to slow down sugar absorption, fiber. What you're left with is essentially a concentrated blast of fructose that rushes into your bloodstream with alarming speed, causing your blood sugar to spike dramatically and placing your heart under sudden, unwelcome stress. Let's talk about the actual numbers, which can be quite sobering. A single 12-ounce glass of orange juice typically contains around 30 grams of sugar. That's roughly the same amount of sugar you'd find in a can of soda. Grape juice often contains even more, and while that sugar may have originated from fruit, your aging pancreas, your delicate arteries, and your hard-working heart don't really know the difference. Fructose is still fructose, regardless of its source, and when it floods your system without the protective, moderating buffer of fiber, it can become a significant biochemical shock. I'll never forget Mrs. Darlene Evans, a 79-year-old retired school principal. She came to see me after experiencing a series of unsettling dizzy spells and episodes of a rapid, fluttering heartbeat. She was sharp, proactive about her health, and had been successfully managing mild hypertension and prediabetes for years with careful eating habits and walking 3 times a week. But lately, something had clearly changed. Her fasting glucose levels were higher, her triglycerides were insidiously rising, and her blood pressure was fluctuating wildly and unpredictably. "I've been cutting back on sweets," she told me earnestly. "I don't eat dessert, I don't drink soda. I've switched to what I thought were heart-healthy juices. Cranberry juice in the morning, orange juice at lunch. No more coffee either." She genuinely believed she was helping her heart. What she didn't realize was that she was effectively pouring the equivalent of 5 to 6 teaspoons of pure sugar into her body every time she filled that juice glass. There was no chewing involved, no fiber to slow things down, just liquid sugar absorbed within minutes. What made things even worse in Mrs. Evans' case was that she was also taking medications to manage her blood pressure and blood sugar. When high sugar juices are consumed regularly, they can blunt insulin sensitivity, raise inflammatory markers throughout the body, and trigger sudden, unwelcome changes in blood pressure, especially when taken concurrently with common heart medications like beta blockers or diuretics. Her symptoms, the palpitations, the lightheadedness, the mental fog, weren't random occurrences. They were the direct result of her body being pushed into a state of metabolic overload day after day, glass after glass. Once we completely removed bottled juice from her daily routine and replaced it with whole fruits consumed in small, sensible portions, along with plenty of water flavored with a squeeze of lemon or a sprig of mint, her energy returned, her heart rhythm stabilized, and her lab results began to steadily improve. I'll never forget what she said, her voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and relief. "I truly, honestly believed I was doing the right thing for myself. No one ever told me that juice could be so dangerous at my age. I was drinking it to try and stay out of the hospital, and it nearly put me in one." This is the painful, often unrecognized reality for so many older adults. You've made sacrifices, you've diligently given up fast food, you've cut out the cookies and cakes, and you're earnestly trying to nourish your body. But the food industry, with its clever marketing, doesn't adequately warn you that the sugar in that healthy juice bottle is processed by your body in much the same way as the sugar in soda or candy, only often faster due to its liquid form. After 60, every dietary choice matters more profoundly. Your liver processes substances more slowly, your arteries may be stiffer, and your heart is more vulnerable to rapid fluctuations in blood sugar and fluid volume. And that natural sweetness in a bottle, it can quietly, insidiously erode your metabolic stability, one glass at a time. So, if you're reaching for bottled juice each morning under the assumption that you're helping your heart, I urge you to pause. Read the label carefully, look at the sugar content, and then ask yourself, would I sit down and eat 5 whole oranges in one sitting? Because, in terms of sugar load, that's often what you're doing with a glass of juice, but without the benefit of the fiber, without the natural balance of the whole fruit, and, most critically, without adequate warning of the potential consequences. Pomegranate has long been lauded and celebrated as a superfruit, hasn't it? It's bursting with potent antioxidants, rich in essential vitamins, and widely known for its purported ability to support heart health. From glossy magazine articles to persuasive health food commercials, it's often portrayed as nothing short of a miracle encased in a ruby red shell. And for many seniors who are consciously trying to make better dietary choices, it seems like a smart, entirely natural alternative to processed snacks or sugary sweets. But here's a critical caveat. If you are over 60 and taking blood-thinning medications such as warfarin, Coumadin, Eliquis, Xarelto, or even a daily low-dose aspirin, this vibrant fruit, or more commonly its juice, could be silently, dangerously turning your essential medication into a loaded weapon inside your body. The danger doesn't lie in the pomegranate itself being inherently bad, but rather in how its powerful natural compounds interact with your medications, particularly concerning how your liver processes these drugs. Pomegranates contain potent phytochemicals that can significantly inhibit specific enzymes in your liver, notably an enzyme system called CYP450, which is responsible for breaking down a wide array of drugs. When these enzymes are blocked or their activity is significantly reduced by components in pomegranate, your medications can build up in your bloodstream to unsafe, potentially toxic levels. This means that a fruit you genuinely believed was healing and protecting you could, without any warning, tip the delicate balance in your body and make your blood too thin. This dramatically increases the risk of serious internal bleeding, hemorrhagic stroke, bleeding in the brain, or significant, easy bruising after even minor bumps or injuries. Let me tell you about Mr. Carl Hendricks, a 77-year-old retired Navy mechanic. He was a soft-spoken man with a remarkably sharp memory and a deep devotion to maintaining his health. He came to see me after experiencing an alarming episode. He noticed blood in his urine and felt a profound lightheadedness that almost caused him to fall in his own kitchen. His INR, a crucial blood test that measures how long it takes his blood to clot, was dangerously high, indicating that his blood was far too thin. Carl was taking warfarin following a minor stroke the previous year. His warfarin dosage hadn't changed, and his other medications were stable, but something was clearly amiss. As we meticulously went through his diet together, he casually mentioned that he'd recently started drinking a glass of pomegranate juice every morning after reading online that it was particularly good for circulation. That, right there, was the missing piece of the puzzle. Pomegranate, especially in its concentrated juice form, when combined with blood-thinning medications like warfarin or even daily aspirin, can significantly intensify their effects. In Carl's case, it pushed his body into a high-risk bleeding state without him ever knowing or suspecting the cause. There was no pain, no immediate warning sign, just a seemingly healthy dietary change that nearly caused a medical emergency. We immediately stopped the pomegranate juice, monitored his INR very closely, and were thankfully able to bring his blood clotting levels back into a safe, therapeutic range. Carl was stunned. "I truly thought I was doing something good for my heart," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "I never ever imagined a fruit could mess with my medicine like that." And that precisely is the problem. No one routinely tells you that fruits, even incredibly healthy ones, can interact with medications just as powerfully as other drugs do. The liver doesn't differentiate based on whether a compound came from a pharmacy or a fruit tree. It just processes everything through the same metabolic pathways. And when you're over 60, those pathways are often slower, more sensitive, and far easier to overwhelm. This is why food becomes so much more than just simple nourishment after 60. It becomes an integral part of your medical care. What you eat either supports your medication regimen or, in some cases, actively competes with it. And that competition, if not recognized and managed early, can lead to tragic outcomes.